All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. My name is Alex Martin. I'm actually a partner over at KWPMC. And today we have two special guests. We have Senor Henry Dow, CEO and founder of Water Restoration Group. Everybody knows it as WRG. And we have our one and only, the man I call Mr. Miyagi, Sherwin Lewis, our corporate director of engineer. Let's get started here because I know we only have 1 hour, 60 minutes here, and there's a lot to discuss here. Sherwin, can you talk about the hurricane preparedness plan? What do we need to do? What do we need to do to be proactive instead of reactive? Because I see a lot of people when they say there's a hurricane out, they start panicking. What are the things that we need to do that we've learned over the last 20 years that need to be done to be proactive during a hurricane season?
Well, first of all, good afternoon to everyone, and thank you for that name, Mr. Miyagi. I like Mr. Miyagi. Um, it's about staying ready, being ready, not getting ready. You don't want to get ready once the season has begun, because at that time it's hard to not just purchase material, but you don't want to be in the reactive mode at that point. But being ready, meaning checking your resources, whether the way your system operate, understanding your building flow or your property flow. It could mean your drainage of your rooftop, garage, making sure you have the supplies necessary to weather the storm, whether there's an issue, whether it's uh, sandbags or other mitigating devices that you may need. Contacting the right restoration companies such as our WRG and having them um, on tap just in case you need them. You don't want to wait until there's a damage to your property, then you're contacting those individuals. Having discussions with your vendors in preparation for this, because you remember, if your property has damages, so does your neighbors. And if you already have a pre-condition with your vendors, you could be one of those that are back up and running in a short period of time. So all those things will help you before, during, and after a storm. But again, be ready, stay ready, don't get ready.
All right. Thank you, Sherwin. Henry, on your end, what do you do to get prepared for hurricane season?
Um, Thank you, Alex, and thank you everybody for joining us. To get ready again, going back to what Sherwin said, it's preparation, and it's starting to have meetings, not right now when hurricane season's about to start, but we should always start these, January, February, have weekly or bi-weekly meetings. I know we're all swamped with meetings anyways and board of director meetings, but this is very important, and the more you plan, it can make a huge difference in the financial outcome of any catastrophe that your association may face. So I say you got to have meetings constantly. If you have committees that are going to be the ones that are helping when a hurricane comes, these need to be formed with time, and then just have the meetings. And I'm sure as this conversation goes a little longer, we'll talk more about details of contracts with vendors and that sort of stuff. But bottom line is meet constantly before the hurricane season comes and have everything ready to go.
Thanks, Henry. And I want to just take a moment here because I see a lot of people are joining this call that I recognize. And last week we had some technical difficulties, and I want to apologize for that. And I appreciate every one of you coming back to listen to this webinar, important webinar. So thank you, and apologies again for what happened last week. Sherwin, who is responsible for executing the hurricane preparation plan? How is this supposed to go at a property level?
Well, the responsible parties is everyone. Everyone have a part to play. Um, doesn't matter what level of personnel you are, whether it's from front desk to the board itself, everyone have a part to play. And piggyback on what Henry said, having meetings and having discussions beforehand is critical. As for team members or employees or whomever, residents, they all need to understand their role in this plan itself. And if they do not understand their part to play, it's very difficult to have good response during a hurricane or during an emergency situation. So everyone have a part to play, from the board to PM, CE, but there's specific roles in that regards. And taking ownership of those roles is going to be critical to the outcome that we wish to have.
Great. Thank Henry. Do you get involved in the hurricane preparation plans? Does your organization?
We tried to, but unfortunately, it seems like not many boards wanna involve a restoration company prior to the hurricane to prepare for it. I mean, we'll get a call here and there as far as, what are the possibilities of us getting, first in line if something happens and whatnot, but I think it needs to be way more than that. It needs to be meetings with, meaningful meetings, and possibly even with the attorneys in the association, to just come up with a plan as to, okay, if we've got 300 units affected, what's going to be the plan? Are we giving you authorization to start them, removing drywall wherever you need to remove drywall, or no, we don't want to do that? Are we going to have a moisture mapping company come out and check out every single unit before you do anything and document that? What if a unit owner is refusing to let us in, or refusing to go to let us, remove baseboard or cut drywall on the unit? Like, what steps are we going to take? What if a unit owner is denying access? How are we going to handle this? So there's so many scenarios that happen during a hurricane, because there's so many, you have complexes of units with your buildings with, 200, 300 units affected. So there's a lot of variables involved. How are we going to handle each situation? But when there's no planning, what happens is we end up, in these situations where everything gets stalled, and stalling ends up costing the association money. And the last thing we want to do during the hurricane is cost you additional money, because as you all know, your hurricane deductibles are so high that many times every dollar that's spent, it's coming out of your pocket. So I would love it for a board to say, hey, let's come in, let's sit and let's brainstorm, and let's talk about how this is going to happen. What's your pricing going to look like? What are we going to get charged? And that way there's no question about that when the storm hits. You just get on automatic mode and get going to recovery.
Agreed. Totally agree. I think everybody should be prepared, because after the storm, it's just chaos, and everyone's looking for vendors and individuals to come in and help and get the building back online. Sharon, why is it critical for boards to start planning early? Hurricane season starts in 30 days. We're exactly 1 month from now, June 1st. I was talking to a friend of mine. He goes out to the Everglades a lot, and he says, wow, it's really dry out there in the Everglades. The water's really low. And every year that we've had these, where the Everglades gets really dry, we usually get these massive rains and storms that come after that. It's just an extreme. And he's actually a Seminole tribe member, and they've been doing this for a long time. So when he says something, I listen. So why is it important to pre-plan here?
Absolutely. Well, Henry just touched on a very critical point. If you're not planning now, and if you're not getting price points that are set, at least to some agreement, remember, during or after hurricane landfall, the prices could go up because the demand is higher. So those individuals you're calling, they're going to have to pick to whomever is the highest price payer, so to speak. So one, you could now not be priority from that vendor. The price could be higher. That's on that end of it. In terms of preparation, think of your deficiencies of your property. Every property have deficiencies. Every property have holes that they may need to plug or attend to. If you're not attending to those early, trying to do them during a hurricane could be actually deadly or catastrophic in many ways, whether to the person that's doing it or to the property itself, right? So having those discussions now, having to walk through the inspection, the planning, what will you do when this happened? What should you do if that happened? Those are all discussions should be having with not just the maintenance, housekeeping, but everyone on site. And if there's a cost factor involved, the board needs to know now and make that decision. If we're purchasing items and you wait until the last minute, the shelves could be bare at that point. And we all know everyone is going to be ordering at the same time. So you could have a delay of supplies that show up after your hurricane. I mean, that would not be good. So yes, planning now is critical.
Yeah, let me jump in there, guys. And there's one reality that we have to face. As much as every manager and every board would like to use the vendor of their choice, or the vendor who they're working with today, or the vendor they like, the reality is many of you are going to end up having to use a vendor you don't like, or a vendor that's you're not used to, because no vendor, doesn't matter what size company, no vendor is going to be able to handle, a catastrophic event and handle every single building. That's just the reality. As far as the point that Sherwin mentioned on pricing, it's demand is part of it, but the other part of it is, just imagine, let's take a local vendor right now that you have 500 buildings under your portfolio of buildings you service. Now you have a catastrophic event. Nobody's set up to handle those 500 buildings. You just can't go to them. So what do we end up having to do as restoration companies? We have to bring resources from outside. Sometimes the resources can come from Texas. Sometimes they can come from Minneapolis. Who knows, wherever you can find them. If I recall correctly, it was Hurricane, I don't know if it was Ian or Irma, but there had just been another storm somewhere else in the country. So all the resources are over there. And now you're having to pay premium dollars to bring resources into Florida. So you got to bring equipment, you got to bring people. And if you bring equipment and people, those people need housing, right? Those people need to eat. There's all these additional expenses. You got to store all this equipment that's coming in. You got to rent additional equipment. Those are all additional expenses, and those are naturally going to cause you to raise your prices. You have to, otherwise you just can't do the work. And at the same time, there's going to be companies coming in from out of state to help, and they're going to also charge those things. They got to stay in hotels. They got to bring in equipment from outside. So it's just a normal thing. It's not even about supply and demand, but it's about just the cost of doing business when a catastrophe hits. So that's why I think it's so important that you have these conversations and have plan A, plan B, plan C. It'd be nice if plan A can always be WRG, and that's beautiful. But WRG might have 30, 40 buildings that they're working on by the time you call. And we might have to tell you have to wait a little bit. And at that point, you might have to go to a vendor that you don't want to call, or vice versa. You might have another vendor you work with today, and you might need them. They not be able to service you at this time. So you're going to have to call somebody you don't like. So that's why I think it's so important for you to be prepared and have those secondary plans, because you can sit with me, WRG, and plan all you want, but what if you end up having to get a vendor that's not WRG? So there's a lot of planning that needs to take place, and I recommend that you meet with the people you need to meet with to have all those plans in place.
Henry, what do you recommend properties have in place now to prepare themselves, like to be proactive for pre-storm?
And I think that the biggest things are one, keys and access to units, which many times we run into those situations where their keys are not even good for the units and the people are not there, so we can't access those. How about work authorizations and contracts already signed for when a hurricane hits, so we don't have to deal with that. And yeah, access to unit keys. What other big things? Pricing, the pricing needs to be established prior to the hurricane. And then the biggest thing is, how are you going to handle the units that are absent? How are you going to handle the units that are damaged? Those are the things that you need to be prepared for. Committees. I think committees are important. When we had the hurricane on the West Coast not long ago, one of the associations we service, it was great to see how the unit owners, they had formed committees, so the committees were helping us because they didn't want to spend all this money on security guards. So what they did, they had committees, and each member would walk with our crew to a unit, let us in, and be there for us, watch what's going on in the unit, and then take the keys, go to the next unit, open that unit. And because if they didn't form that committee, I don't know who would have done all that work. And if you don't do all that work, all of a sudden this unit remains wet for longer and longer and longer, and the damage just gets worse.
Absolutely. Sherwin, anything you have to add to that? What should we have prior to to prepare in a proactive way when a hurricane arrives?
Absolutely. There are different types of mitigating devices. Again, if you want Some people have sandbags, but I don't think that's one of the most efficient items to have. There are different type of material you could have on site that's more lightweight, because sometimes we are surprised by the weather event that could happen overnight. So you need to have items that the individuals working in the evening or overnight can utilize. Um, Radios, um, batteries, testing of your emergency systems, make sure they're fueled up. Um, some even water, as an example. Please don't underestimate that type of items. Having water on site is critical for if you're um, stranded in that particular property for a period of time. Um, Boots, I mean long boots, because you never know if you have flooding, electrical situation there. You want to make sure you have the right material on your feet. Um, just a plan, a structural plan of where all your shutoffs are, whether it's water shutoff, electrical shutoff, a listing of those things that someone who's new to your property can easily discern and understand and utilize if needed.
Alex, and I think this is probably more to you that you're on the association side financials. Like, what position are we in? What's our deductible? If our deductible is $2.5 million, what position are we in right now to do anything? Like, do we have money to
Makes
bring a
sense.
vendor in? How's that going to work? Because if with WRG, you might have some sort of leniency and be able to work out something because there's that relationship. But what if you end up having to work with another vendor that's going to ask you for 200,000? They're going to say, okay, you got 200 units. I need 200,000 just to get started. Like, do we have that? And then what if the damage is more than that? We have associations that are in that situation that they had damage. You have a lot of work done, and now they have to pass assessments, and everybody's surprised. But that's another thing. Communicating with the unit owners at these board meetings, what's to be expected financially. What could happen. Our deductible is $2 million. So if push comes to shove and we have to spend $2 million, this is how much you can expect an assessment for. That, and maybe I'm getting more into your field, but I think it's something that's very important to discuss and be prepared for. Emergency checks. What if the manager needs to get somebody out here fast to pump out water out of these elevator pits? Can they issue checks or not? I don't know. Just ideas for the association side.
And it's great. So sure, you mentioned water. I realized during the hurricanes in a lot of the buildings, some generators do run domestic water pumps. Some generators don't. Can you explain a little bit about that? Because the first thing you do lose in a hurricane is the electricity, right? So
Absolutely. Now, the issue there is what capacity was designed for your property. Some buildings have a smaller capacity generator. Some you may be able to add your domestic pump and some items to it, but you have to really have a discussion with the generator company, look at the capacity and see if there's something you're willing to invest in. It all depends. If you want to go that direction and if your property is able to do so, this will allow you to have pressure throughout the building running on generator. It's a good thing to have, I would say, but it will reduce the length of time your generator can run. If your generator at full capacity in fuel could run 2 weeks, it may reduce it to a week and a half or even a week, depending on, again, consumption. So I think it's something to think about. If it makes sense, I would say definitely invest in it. But there's other items you could add to the generator if the capacity is there. And if you're looking to replace the generator, is also something you could look into in increasing the capacity so that you could add more items on the emergency generator. But it's a good idea.
Patrick from Tampa is asking a good question. Should elevators and generators be kept on during a hurricane?
No. Well, the generator could be by itself. The elevators, no. If you are going into a shutdown mode, I would suggest shutting down your elevators. They could be problematic if you have water intrusion into the shaft, which a lot of times you do. especially if the elevators are parked on the first floor. My suggestion is park it midway in the building, shut it down, and depower the entire system.
Perfect. So Paul's asking a question here. What about docks,
Mm.
lakefronts? What should be done in advance with docks and lakeside properties?
For those, remove anything that could become projectile, similar to your pool deck. Anything that could be disconnected or removed, I would remove everything that could become a projectile. Anything that could come loose. You have many of them have fire hose on the deck. I would remove that entire box for that timeline because those items could become projectile. Any other safety devices, again, that could come loose. Securing everything outside is going to be critical for mitigating damages. Um, in terms of course, the boats should not be there, but there are times when we are caught in a flash situation where you cannot remove those items. At that point, I would say strap down is going to be the best option at that point.
Henry, what have you seen with docks and lakeside properties on your end?
To be honest with you, it's just what Sherwin just mentioned. I mean, the anything that can be a projectile is what I would remove. You know, ideally the boats are not there, but we know that that's not that's not reality. You're gonna have people who just didn't get to it and didn't move their boats, but can't say much more about a dock.
There's not much. It's just removal and strap down. There are times we could strap things down that cannot be removed the best way possible. But beyond that, removing any projectile or things that could come loose will be the best bet for your docks.
Sure. Regarding communication, what kind of communication should be going out? How far out from a hurricane? Who should be receiving it? What kind of systems do we use that you highly recommend to communicate to the residents and staff?
I always recommend regurgitating the city, county, and state information. There are times when we may misinterpret what we are seeing because we're getting it from so many different angles. We want to have one source. And if we're taking on what the city, county, and state is issuing, will be the best bet in terms of your avenue of communication or early. The early, the better. The earlier, the better, and the frequency should be high. Meaning, if you have to send out notification every hour on the hour as we get closer, I think is critical for those who have to make decisions on whether to stay or go or what they need to do. It's going to be critical and help assist in better decision making. In terms of your internal team, I would say you have constant meeting and updates as to where we at, what are we going to do, who is responsible for what, and what they should be doing at what particular time. In terms of the building itself, again, as we get closer to that landfall, every hour on the hour, I would send out some communication.
Okay, great. So when is the best time? I know a best practice is to raise the elevators in the high rise, right, when the hurricane's about to hit. Do you take it to the top floor? And when is the best time to shut down an elevator?
I wouldn't take it to the top floor. Midway through the building is best, depending on the height of your building, of course. The ground floor is definitely a no-go. The top floor, there are times when the top floor of a building, you have water intrusion. Mm-hmm. And you try to not have the car parked at the very top of the building. That will help you. So the best thing is to park it midway through. Time-wise, well, if we're going in a shutdown procedure, it should be at least 24, sometimes 48 hours before landfall. So, but that's a decision that we give to the board to make that final decision if we should go ahead with shutdown. But my recommendation is yes.
Henry, do you see a lot of elevators getting damaged on your end?
Yes.
To bring back online? What is it that happens to these elevators? Where does the water come from? Is it the rooftop? What is it that causes the damage and the shutdown?
No, I mean, believe it or not, sometimes they don't get moved to where they're supposed to. So you have water coming in. And then obviously the elevator shafts get the grunt of it. all the time. So, and I don't know, Sherwin, if you wanted to touch on elevator pit, removing
Oh,
water from there or whatnot, or what kind of procedures should.
absolutely. Some cars are designed to automatically go to the ground floor as the default, and that sometimes become problematic. That default position could be in a water pit. For instance, if you ever seen a pit, it's sometimes 6 to 8 feet deep, depending on the system. And the pit could be also full of water. Having your elevator descend into a pit of water could only be problematic. Um, that's why we suggest parking it midway up in the building and depower, because any power in the elevator could damage the circuit boards of that system, which is very costly. And remember, during that time, you're not the only one going through this. So your delay for repair could be very extensive. It's not even about the cost. It's just the timeline for repair could be very long.
That's great. So I had a question here. Cooling towers. So do you keep, if you have two cooling towers, do you keep one on during the hurricane? Do you shut off both of the cooling towers? Do you just keep them on? Do you turn them both off and get through the storm? There's a lot of questions here about cooling towers in a building, the HVAC system.
One thing to keep in mind, once you get past 45 miles an hour wind, things start to happen and damage starts, whether it's with your cooling tower fans, the blades, the body of the cooling tower, things happen. My recommendation would be start shutting down your cooling tower, period. Start shutting down your property as a whole. Now, you could do it in phases. It doesn't necessarily mean you shut down the entire system. The majority of buildings have redundancies. There's never a one pump, one fan situation. My suggestion is before that timeline, shut down one. Your building is designed most time to run on one fan or one pump. Isolate one. Because if you're caught off guard, you could have damages to your entire system, which again could be extensive, not because of the cost of repair, because you're not the only person dealing with this situation. So that part could be backlogged for weeks, months at times. So it's best to isolate at least one half of your system. Now, past 45 miles an hour, I would say to shut down all. That would be my recommendation. How much time are we dealing with in terms of a shutdown? 2 days, 3 days, sometime. Look at what the downtime will be if we don't do this. We could be down for months. I think it's worth it.
Agree. Agree. So the recommendation is after 45 miles per hour?
Yes, you start shutting down. Yes.
Off till the storm passes through, and then once the storm is over, bring everything back up online.
That's correct.
Okay, great. We got a question here, Kim. In. So how much actual cash should be available to purchase, pay for necessities like gas, repairs? Like the last storm they had nobody was accepting credit cards, and they couldn't purchase gas for generators, but only from a few stations. So what should you do here to be able to make sure you have cash or be able to pay for just even generator fuel if you're starting to run out of generator? Because some of these generators only will run for what, 48, 72 hours before it's time to refill.
Depends on the size. If your generator is only running for 72 to 48 hours, I would suggest adding an extra tank. That's a very short time. I think any timeline that's comfortable should be about 2 weeks, at least a week. 72 hours, we could have a storm that no one get to you in 5 days. So my recommendation is look towards adding a tank. Now, in terms of purchasing, if you have the right vendors that you already have discussions with, you could create a credit system that you don't need cash at that particular point, which will help. Now, I do understand there's some individuals have a small fuel generator, gasoline generators that they need cash. That's a different situation, and that is subjective to property by property. So I can't give a number. Some may be $1,000 and some might be more.
Yep.
I agree. Yeah, if you have a big generating building, you should have a credit with this individual and make sure that they will deliver fuel. I remember back, was it Irene that lasted 2-3 days over us? was it back in 2019, 2018? I think it was,
2017.
was it
Ian, I think, no? Or Irma.
Yeah, I remember that. And we didn't have power for days, 3, 4 days, and we're looking for fuel. And we had contracts with fuel companies, and they were coming out and topping off all of our buildings in the meantime, so we wouldn't run out of generator power until the power came back on. So that was very big, and because without that generator, a lot of times I learned, and you're the engineer, I'm not, but I learned that elevators will only work on only a certain amount of elevators work on generator power, life safety, correct?
Correct.
Sometimes some domestic water pumps and maybe some common area power, or maybe one HVAC somewhere, some HVAC system somewhere may not. I don't know, but I learned different. So it's important you learn it, right?
HVAC system for the most part are not on the emergency generator. Depending on the building. For the majority of them, no. They usually have a service elevators that run on the generator, and for the most part, there are some buildings that add more. Again, the more you add, the larger generator you'll need, and sometimes the shorter time you'll have for your fuel. So you definitely need an extra tank at that point. Some of the other whether pumps, water pumps, it's all selective and depending on the building type or design.
Perfect. So some of our large HOAs, lakeside, have these massive drains out in the parking lot. And how important is it to maintain those drains? What needs to be done? Because I've learned that a lot of times if these drains are not draining properly with all the rain, you can have a lot of damage in these homes and clubhouses.
Absolutely. So there are different types of drainage systems. Some is called leach system, where you have to jet those drain out every interval, depending on where you at. Sometimes it's every 3 years, 5 years, so they drain properly. But before a storm, if your property have those type of linear drains, you may need to add screens to help debris from going into those drains and clogging them. If you don't, think of plant material debris clogging those drains and creating flood within that area. So what should you do? There are screens that could be placed above those drains to help mitigate those type of events. Additionally, check all your drains, check your covers, walk your property, whether it's a HOA or a condo, same thing, walk your property, check your drains. Have preparation for those type of mitigation items. Install them beforehand, not during, beforehand. So it's not hasty. Add weights to them so they stay in place. Some people add sandbags on those devices. It doesn't mean it work 100%, because if you have a category 5, things could change at that point. But for the most part, it will work. It's designed to work. Trust that it will.
Henry, where during wind-driven rainstorm, where is it you see most of the damage coming from? Is it from rising water? Is it from water intrusion through windows, through sliding glass doors? What is it you see the most damage come from?
Well, wind-driven rainstorm, it's going to be sliding glass doors. It's going to be windows. And you'd be surprised how much water comes in. And many times it's not visible to the naked eye, it's having to go in there and take a look, moisture readers, thermal imaging cameras, and taking a peek and see how wet it really is. But many times, the biggest mistake is that people just, I've got a contractor already in the building, he's taking a peek for me. But the contractor is not somebody who has the tools to measure moisture. So I think it's very important that that's clear. Not anybody can just go and put their hand on the wall and say it's dry or it's wet. You need the proper tool to do so.
Henry, how important is documentation prior to a storm? Because I know you sometimes get involved in this process.
Yeah.
How important is it when you're dealing with insurance?
Yeah, very, very much so. Unfortunately, these past few years, the insurance, market has been so tough, and insurance carriers are getting, much tighter. I know it's changing now a little bit for the good, but they're always trying to find a reason to not to not pay for stuff. So the more documentation you have, the better, so you can show that certain damage didn't exist before. So I think it's always good to document the state of your property, the state of even parking lots, build roofs, all that stuff, to have videos, to have pictures, just to show this is what it looked like before and this is what it looks like now.
To add to this, my recommendation is video everything. Pictures are great, but it depends on the angle. Video does an even better job in showcasing all the detail. So take a walk through your property. Take a walk through your garage, video your rooftop, video everything before you, even after the hurricane, before you touch anything, video everything. This is a way to showcase the damage. There are a lot of times we start immediately moving things, but not realizing we're removing evidence of what the damage really was or is. So let's keep that in mind.
Very important. So what happens if you're in an evacuation zone? Question came in here and they're asking you to evacuate and you stay there. Sherwin, what do you do with the team on site if they're in evacuation zone? And Henry, I'll come to you later. How do you get into that evacuation post-storm? Go ahead,
Well,
Sherwin.
first of all, if we are in an evacuation zone, I would say adhere to that order first and foremost. But if we are caught in an evacuation zone, there are ways we can get into those areas, but after. But we need authorization from the local authority, which could become problematic and long. Sometimes they're very tentative about allowing individuals back into those zones because of the danger of fallen wires or things of that nature. So that's why I would tell everyone, if you are told to evacuate, please evacuate. There's a reason for it. They are not going to put their team in danger to come out in an area that we have fallen wires. That could be very dangerous. And for you to expect now us to come out at that point, it could be very lengthy in time. Some things could be very quick to recover, and sometimes it's extensive. So my suggestion is evacuate if the order is given.
Henry, how do you get back into these evacuation zones after the storm?
So what we've done before, we'll send our clients a form for them to sign, which basically says that we're an emergency responder, and that we have been hired by, the name of the association, and please give us access to that area. Is that going to work every single time? I don't know. It's just going to depend on the severity of the damage in the area, but it sure did work over here when Irma hit, and for us to get into the beach, because I remember they were blocking all the bridges over to the beach. But with that document in hand, our crew chiefs and technicians were able to show that to the officers, and they let us right past and let us get to work at the building. So again, these are just all little things that can help. It's not a sure thing that they're going to let you buy, but if you have that, you got a better chance.
Absolutely.
What happens with about owners who do not leave during an evacuation, Sherwin?
At that point, the emergency service will let you know that they're on their own. There's a point in time where the police department and the fire department stop responding, and you will have to ride that storm out. Now, hence why even in our plan, we suggest having water, having any type of ration food on site, because this could happen, whether planned or unplanned, it could happen. So having those items on site could assist those individuals survive in the storm, and being able to be there until rescue arrives. But I can tell you, please do not disregard those orders, because they will not respond. I can tell you that now. They will not respond.
Yeah, there was I heard of someone stayed during a storm in an evacuations area, and this individual had a heart attack, and ambulance would not head over there for this individual. Luckily, he survived, but during the process of the hurricane, had a heart attack, and none of the emergency services were available that moment. So if you're in an evacuation zone, uh, emergency services will not come to you. Sure, we have a question here that just came in. It says, should all contracts held like roofers, landscapers, etc., have a shutdown of work mandated, supplier secured, remove debris days, hours prior to a landfall of a predictive storm?
I wouldn't say it should be in the contract, but you need to have that discussion. For instance, if you have swing stage on your building, of course, it should have a shutdown in the contract itself. But for your landscapers, you should have that discussion early. Yeah, what are we doing before, during, and after? Because you may need them to show up after to remove falling trees, trimming, and things of that nature. Beforehand, or do they have equipment on site? How are you securing that equipment? Are you securing it for them? Are they removing it on site? Also, you may even offer them to park a particular vehicle on your site, which will be a good thing. Some people allow them to, if they have backhoe or bobcats or things of that nature, you may offer them to park it on your site, because after the post hurricane, you may need equipment on site and you don't have a way to bring them in. If it's already on site, make it easier for them to respond. So these are discussions you need to have beforehand to ensure that the response is there and you understand what everyone's assignments are. So yes.
And Alex, that's why I touched on it before, but just the need, for an attorney to be involved in some of this planning, at least in some of the meetings, it's crucial, because Sherwin just touched on a few things, like contractually, who's responsible for removing the roofing material that's on your site? Is it you? Is it them? Who's paying for it or whatnot? So these are just little details that an attorney can help get you on the right track with. But there's many more, as far as the restoration contractor that's coming in, as far as what work you're going to do, where are you going to allow the contractors to work, and what I talked about before, which is access to units, the guy who didn't evacuate, or the guy who doesn't want to let you in, all that stuff, an attorney's needed.
Keep in mind too, if you have projects on site, they could charge for that mobilization. So to demobilize and mobilize, there could be charges involved. And there are times within the contract, they may allow one mobilization, but after the second, after the first, you start paying for the second, third, and so forth. All those discussions should be had beforehand. You don't want to be surprised with a bill. And sometimes those bills are substantial. If you have cranes and things of that nature, it could be substantial. So I would say have that discussion beforehand, not wait until we're close to the hurricane time. They're scrambling also, and that could drive up the costs.
That's actually a great point. Make sure you have that in your contracts. I think Daniel made a comment here. Daniel is a good comment here. It's important to set up a plan for those buildings that we're under concrete restoration. So to have a GC put plywoods on those units that remove the shutters due to the ongoing work.
Yes, I would say that should be a part of it. For any type of restoration that's removing, waterproofing, anything that would safeguard water from coming into the property needs to be in the contract, or a discussion item at least. Make some agreements there.
Yeah, so Jane from Highland has what is the property manager's response after storm in terms of damage assessments and adequate resources? She just asked that question.
Damage assessment, I would say, as I always say in any of the hurricane preparation, utilize your team. As a individual, you will miss things. No one knows the property better than the next. Remember, your housekeepers, groundskeepers, valet, whomever you have, they know these areas. Have them be a part of that assessment. There may be a bench in the front that you may have missed, that the valet see every day. There may be a statue that the groundskeeper has to work around. They see it every day. You don't. Have them be a part of that assessment. Do not enter buildings alone if the building was condemned for whatever reason until it was okayed by the fire department. Go in two-man team. Video everything. Document everything. Don't take anything for granted. Do not re-energize a building unless it's completely safe and cleared. The list is long, but I can tell you these are just a few items you should use in assessing the damage.
And professionals, right? Because it's too much for one manager and their team
Absolutely.
to assess an entire complex of units.
Oh, you cannot.
They can't, and you
can't.
need to have professionals going in there and checking and see what's damaged. Again, I go back to the moisture situation. You need somebody to assess that if that's something you want to assess. But the manager, the manager already has a lot of stuff that they're dealing with. So to put the weight on them to determine what's damaged and what's not, it's tough. I think whatever professionals you can get a hold of, that's I think who needs to assess it.
Well, you beat me to the question because I was going to ask you, how do you contribute? How do you come in? Because you know where the damage is going to be. You have that experience. You have that background. You know where to look, right? Because you've seen it in the past for decades. So how do you come in and help the management teams, the property?
Good question, Alex. So it just depends. I mean, if you tell me, money's not an issue and I don't care about, that I just need to do exactly what the book says I should do, then you have to have a moisture mapping team take a look at everything. That's a third party that's going to check the moisture in all the units and give you maps showing there's moisture here, here, here. This is what we need to do. And then your restoration company can follow that and do whatever work needs to be done.
How do you look for moisture? How do you look for moisture? What kind of equipment do you use if you can't see it? How do you look for it? What do you?
Thermal imaging cameras, moisture meters.
Okay.
So, those companies are going to use all that and they're going to provide maps and documentations as to what was wet. And with that documentation, the restoration company can get to work, right? So this is a third party doing this, and that's what we normally recommend. Now, unfortunately, during these catastrophe situations, the pricing to get that done is, it's again, due to the expenses, due to the lodging, due to the per diems, and due to all that stuff that needs to be incurred, that can get heavy. In one particular association where we did moisture mapping, it was, I don't know, it was like $300,000 we paid for moisture mapping. It was somewhere around 300 units or 400 units that were looked at. So it's a lot of money, but you have a third party that where you can document, okay, this is why we removed this drywall because we have this third party saying that this is what needed to be removed. So that's the correct way to do it, Alex. There's going to be associations that say we don't want to go through, that's an expensive endeavor, we don't want to do that, and they might want to roll the dice and have you as a restoration company go and check in, do the moisture mapping yourself. So those are the options. Us as a restoration company, we would much rather the association get a moisture mapping company, but if they don't, then we will assess the moisture.
Now, there's water intrusion. Do you see this more in the big category 5 type storms, Forrester, or you can see them in category 1 and 2? Because I know some of the most damage I ever experienced was that I think it was a category 1 that just sat over the Bahamas. That one storm in 2018, I think it was Irene, you said, right? I just sat over for 2-3 days. It was just wind driven rain, maybe 50, 60 miles an hour. And I've never seen so much water in buildings before.
Yeah. No, it doesn't have to be a 5. You can get water intrusion with any of those. Yep.
Sure. What can people do proactively to make sure they don't get all this wind driven rain? Because it seems like category 5 is going to do a lot of damage. But when you get these category 1s and 2s, that's just a lot of water being pushed against the buildings and the homes. What can they do proactively to stop this water intrusion?
Well, several things. Well, we know for a fact that we have in our business, we have a lot of snowbirds. And there are times when preparing for those buildings, we should inspect the windows. Sometimes we do it from a building next door. We try to ensure everyone lock their doors properly, the sliding doors, lock their windows properly, ensure that you're sealed. Utilize your time when you're doing your fire alarm inspection to check and see if those doors are locking properly, see if the windows are locking properly, and report it back. Because these are the small things that become major damage when there's a hurricane or wind driven rain. So those are some of the small steps. On your sliding doors and window, there's a small item on the outside that people sometimes fail to notice. It's called a weep hole. It's a small little window that flaps. Ensure they're working. Check them. If the flaps are not working, they will flood your home. That's the drain for your sliding glass door or your windows. It's a small thing, but it's critical to the drainage of your windows and doors.
Very important. So there's a question. Thank you, Sherwin. So there's a question here. So if we're not in an evacuation zone, do you have a designated like command center for staff or a team that's going to stay during a hurricane in case anything happens? Even if you're not in an evacuation zone, do you set this plan up?
In your emergency plan, you should have a shelter in place location and a command center. And you can activate that at any point. This is where having the meeting beforehand, having the practice beforehand, you know where your command center is. Have discussion with your team, whether the command center is my room or the fire alarm command room, wherever that is. Make that decision beforehand, yes, and meet those individuals there, saying, this is where we meet, and here's a plan of who should be there, and distribute this discussion and assignments from that particular location. But yes, you can do that. And it should be in the plan.
So, Henry, how do you make sure that after a storm, you're able to get this equipment immediately over to the location? Do you have the equipment waiting on trucks? Are you in a warehouse? How do you get these locations, especially the ones that have a contract with you that you're guaranteeing service?
No, you know what? At some point in time, we had put equipment in different places, but then we found that logistically it was terrible because you don't know what buildings are going to call you. So then you find yourself chasing the equipment all over the city to get it to where it needs to go. So no, it's here, and it goes from our warehouse straight to where it needs to go. And then sometimes when we know we're going to need more than what we have, then we have 18-wheelers full of equipment ready to dispatch to whatever area we need to go to.
Okay, great. So we have a question here just came in. If an insurance company can't get their adjuster out quickly as needed after a storm, and they need to clear out, debris and stuff, and start the clearing out sooner than later, should additional video be taken? Should an independent adjuster go out, provide a service, or a PE be used as an extra service to record the damage before? Because sometimes you have to clear out the damage so you can have reentry to the places, fix stuff, pile stuff away, and you might be in evacuation. So what should be done extra to make sure that all this is recorded if the adjuster can't make it on time?
I think all of those are good options. Like
Yes,
any one of them. If you are the association that works with a public adjuster on your losses, then it's a good time to engage them. Videos are good. So all policies have a section that says duties after the loss, and your duties to protect your property, just like as a manager, your duties to protect the property, right? So in the insurance world, you also have to protect the property from further damage, and clearing that out, you have to get it done. So you can't be waiting on the adjuster to come out. So definitely document as much as you can so you can show them exactly what happened. But yes, all of those options are good. If you can get a PE out there, that's great. But any of those people or any of those recordings are going to be good for you.
I echo the same. I would use all of those documentation before touching anything, as I said before, video before, during, and after. Mm-hmm. So you can use that as your proof of what the damage is or was.
So someone's asking a question here. So trees, tennis courts, roof material that fell, should all that be kept on site as evidence, or is it okay to take off site to the dumpster prior to the appraiser showing up? Or should they do mountains of information? Because someone's asking this question, do you need everything on site so they can see it, or do you just videotape it and have them haul it away before the appraiser can get there?
I think if you record it, take pictures and whatnot, and you really need to get it out of there, get it out of there. If there's a way to not get it out of there, there's no rush to get it out of there, then just try to wait for the adjuster. The more the adjuster can see, the better. But if you need to get that stuff out of the way so you can perform other activities to mitigate the damage to your property, the insurance company is always going to want you to do that to protect the property.
Perfect. I know we have 5 minutes here. Sherwin, how do we communicate and manage residents to come back to the property after a storm? How does this communication work? What's the process here?
Well, there's several ways. Some property are very good at sending out email or text blasts. There's some some of them have group chats that owners get involved in. But we have our 800 number that we could also give out to those properties that they could reach out to. I think that might be the best bet in our scenario. But we could set up different type of channels of communication with the property. But again, this all needs to be discussed beforehand. We should be having this discussion. If this occurred, here's a number to dial. Here's how we know that it's all clear. This not just goes for the resident, but this also goes for employees. The same discussion should be had, and those numbers should be given out in advance.
Perfect. So we got a couple minutes here. I'm going to ask each of you the last question. I'll go to you, Henry, first, and then Sherwin next. Henry, if there's 3 things you've learned that you want to share out to the community, what are the top 3 things everybody should be ready for when it comes to hurricane season?
I think committees are a great idea to support your management team and your vendors and whatnot. You know, prepare. Again, meetings, and I mean starting, like, we're already too late. We should start having meetings in February and March as to who's going to do what and responsibilities. And then meeting with your vendors and have plan A, plan B, plan C, have contracts in place, pricing in place and whatnot, so there's no surprises.
Great. Sherwin, what do you highly recommend here? It's something that's your pet peeve, personally, just says, I wish everybody just did these 3 things. If you lived in a single family home, condo, HOA, wherever you are in Florida.
Well, one of mine is we all work in safeguarding major properties, condos, HOA. But my question to everyone is, did you have one for your own home? Did you take this information and do one for yourself? That's 1. 2, understand your property, whether it's a condo or a HOA, understanding how your property work, understanding what valves or switches you need to turn at a given moment to whether it's shutting down your property or bringing it back online. Understand your capacity. If you do not understand your capacity, it changes your decision making, right? Whether you know you have a week worth of fuel or you have 2 weeks or you have 2 days. All those things are critical in your decision making. And also, if your building cannot run at half mast, meaning I cannot shut down half my building, this helps with decision making. When you're going to the board stating we're going to go into a shutdown, asking for permission to completely shut down a property, if you understand how you can phase this, it can help with that decision making. Because most board members may be hesitant to give approval if we're going to shut down Thursday for Saturday landfall. But if we're going through a phase prospect, I think people will be more susceptible to say yes rather than no. So those are mine.
Love it. That's amazing. I took these notes for myself too. So I want to remind everybody, it's 3 o'clock, it's 2:59 here. On May 21st, we have our webinar, and this one's going to be really exciting. It's called The Art of Negotiations. I highly recommend you to watch it. It's going to be amazing. And on behalf of Sherwin Lewis from KWPMC, Henry from WRG, and myself, Alex Martin, thank you for joining us today. Loved all the questions. Love seeing all the names I recognize here, and I can't wait to see you next month. Well, this month, May 1st. See you in about 3 weeks. Okay. Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.